looked like the issues were more technical than physical, so after a quick inspection, Dale was back on his way, no doubt regretting allowing cameras on his bike. Back at Piper's Weight, Debbie Shaw was the next rider to feel the burn. She had a strong lead in the women's competition and was mixing it with some of the higher placed men. Second woman through was Tracy Hazeldine, who'd overtaken Tanya Ray on the road.
Catch us at our worst, man!
Kyle Campbell may have managed to raise a few words, but others only managed to smile. Tanya Ray in third looked like she was suffering and was working hard to keep her nearest rival at bay, even though she was from a relay team. And behind them in fourth in the solo women's event was Megan Harper. Most riders were at their limit on the climb, but one seemed to have enough in reserve to fit in a little running commentary.
Hello there, Grimsby Tri Club. Chris Lodge is ahead, Dave Plunkett just behind.
If only more riders were that helpful. Back at Sandy Balls, friends and families were eagerly awaiting the arrival of the riders to complete their first lap. Sure enough, still at the front was John Fern from Salisbury Tri Club in the relay competition. But second on the road was now Sean Benfield, meaning that both relay teams were clear of the main race. Austin Mills was first man through in the main race and looked strong. Second now was Jared Walbridge, who'd moved up one place, and Richard Thomas had fallen back into third. One man really on a roll was Nathan Blake, who'd moved up into fourth place, with Ian Hobley not far behind in fifth. Sam Lane already had Ian in his sights though, and was chasing hard in sixth. By the end of lap 1, Debbie Shaw had a commanding lead, with no sign of a challenge. Tracy Hazeldine was comfortable in second, and riding her own race. In third place, Tanya Ray looked more comfortable than at Piper's Weight, and had also extended the gap on her relay shadow. If Dean Johnson was expecting sympathy as he came through to start his second lap, he'd have been disappointed, but it didn't seem to worry him.
Put your sign down now.
From Sandy Balls, riders followed the main road down towards Fordingbridge, negotiating a few tight turns on the descent. At the bottom, and just before the town itself, the route went sharp left at the junction with the A338. But instead of joining the main road, riders turned left again onto the narrow lanes towards Frogham, which contained the possibility of numerous hazards. Up ahead, in Frogham itself, the marshals were having to deal with a little antisocial behaviour from the locals. Austin Mills came through in the lead of the solo men's race without incident though, as did Jared Walbridge in second and Richard Thomas in third. Nathan Blake remained in fourth, but Sam Lane had now moved up into fifth and was gradually closing in on Nathan. Ian Hobley was wisely riding his own race, leaving Sam to his relentless pursuit of the leaders. Up ahead, Austin Mills was at Moyles Court and about to rejoin the road out of T1 at Ellingham on his way towards Ringwood. Jared Walbridge was comfortable in second, as was Richard Thomas in third. Nathan Blake was closing on both though, as was Sam Lane on him. Meanwhile, Dale was back to his old self and seemed to have put the crash behind him, despite carrying a souvenir. Debbie Shaw was having a great ride at the head of the women's race, but it wasn't all plain sailing for everyone. Paul Thompson of Grimsby Dry Club had a flat, and back at Moyles Court, Tracy Hazeldine had exactly the same problem. Up on Jamesmore Plain at one of the main feed stations on lap 2, The first rider on course was approaching, but it wasn't who we were expecting. Sean Benfield in the relay competition had blitzed his way past John Fern to get to the front and was now setting about consolidating that lead. The biggest surprise though was to find Sam Lane in the lead of the solo men's race. He'd moved up 5 places since passing Sandy Balls at the end of lap 1. And behind him was Nathan Blake in second, who'd been looking strong all morning. So what had happened to Austin Mills? When Austin arrived in third, all seemed normal, and he was very calm. So maybe he was just pacing himself.
Perfect. You're going through it early. You'll go through it later, right?
Alright, see you later. Cheers, mate.
Behind Austin, Jared Walbridge was also well placed, in fourth.
Do they fit in? Probably not.
Most riders were taking on high-tech nutrition at this point, but some were looking for something a little bit more comforting.
Cheeseburger?
Oh yeah, that's right. You were,
No?
Yeah, no, not
Still
next
not?
time. Next time.
Yeah.
Fresh in the
Right, you can go now.
No, I'm going to take a minute.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's alright.
Well,
It's
yeah,
my minute, isn't it?
Yeah.
No. Feels like I should say something. Come on stage. I'm going to go.
Ah yes, the best way to get an athlete moving again. Stick a camera in his face. When the locals start running for cover, you know there's trouble ahead. And sure enough, it came. A hailstorm. It was only a short one, but that wasn't much comfort to Simon Buick, who'd timed his stop to perfection. Back at Sandy Balls, the leaders were starting their last lap. There was no change at the front in the relay competition, but Sam Lane had now overhauled John Fern to take second place on the road and first solo man. Nathan Blake had also moved up to third on the road and second behind Sam. With John Fern now falling back and mixing into the solo race, Ian Hobley was chasing hard, perhaps sensing a scalp, while Richard Thompson had his sights set on Hobley. Austin Mills was now lying in fifth, having dropped 4 places since the last pass. It was business as usual though for Debbie Shaw, still up front in the women's race. Up on Ocknell Plain on the last lap, there was finally something to temper Sean Benfield's blistering pace. Not so for Sam Lane though. He had clear roads and was making full use of them. Nathan Blake was looking for a way to get himself out of a sandwich, while Ian Hobley in third was probably wishing he was on the track. There was one final push down from Jamesmoor Plain back to transition and the end of the bike leg. After 112 miles, there was just a short blast through God's Hill and then into Sandy Balls for T2.
You ready, mate? Have a good day out there. It's bloody lovely. I'll get this badger off.
Sean's work was done, and it was over to Terry Riles to bring home the bacon for Salisbury Tri Club in the relay.
Go on, mate. Give it your best.